for all of us, and I've been pleased with the way our players have done that so far this week.
You talk about just the stage that's been set of getting to the college football playoff and the expectation not just getting here, but winning a national title that you have and your players have.
Well, I think that, all teams, have goals and aspirations for what they want to try to accomplish, in every season. I think we've had, over the last 10, 11 years, a lot of players in our program, coaches in our program who, have established a standard of excellence that every other player that comes in the program sort of tries to emulate. And we know we can't win every game, and we know we can't be perfect, but we're certainly trying to work every day to close the gap on how good can we be, and are we reaching our full potential, and how we improve and work every day. So I don't like for our players to, think about expectations. I don't like to think about, winning championships. I really like for them to think about, what do I have to do to be a champion? How do I have to sort of prepare every day, manage my time, take care of myself, be on top of what I'm doing to be the best version of myself, as a person, as a student, and as a football player. And I think if we get the majority of the people on our team to be dependable and responsible in that regard, we'll certainly play together as a team, have a lot of positive energy, and everybody will be trying to execute in a way that won't allow the other team, we won't give the other team a lot. And I think that's always the goal.
James, I know you've been in this stadium 6 years ago against the Boys. Beyond that, walking this building, what kind of
Well, I have a lot of great memories. We really enjoyed, being here. Wayne and Marty Huizinga were, great people to be associated with, to work for. I think I told somebody just last night at dinner that probably never been around more gracious people in all my life in terms of what they did for this community, and what they did for a lot of people, and really what the opportunity that they gave us and how they supported us in the opportunity. So we have a lot of friends here. We always look forward to coming back here. We wish things would have worked out a little better for us in terms of winning a few more games. But, we enjoyed the experience, and the experience helped me become a better person and a better coach.
Do you look at college, coaching in college differently after that NFL experience? And if so, how?
Well, I think coaching in the NFL was a great experience. I think when you're in the NFL, basically you have two goals. How do you make the players on your team better, and how do you bring players to your team to help your team get better? I think in college, the scope is a little greater. You're trying to, you have people at a different sort of time in their life where you're trying to help them be more successful in life because they were involved in your program, whether it's personal development, graduating from college, developing a career off the field, trying to develop a career and doing the things that they need to do to develop a career as a football player and have an opportunity to play at the next level. So, there's a lot of things that you're trying to help a guy grow and develop in, which is challenging, but also there is some positive self-gratification, that goes along with that. So I know that how important winning is to our fans and all the people, but from a program standpoint, you're trying to build something that creates value for the players. And we try to reinvest as much as we can in the players so they have a better chance to be successful, and that's a different kind of challenge, I think.
So do you think that was a better fit for you in the end?
I enjoy it. I enjoyed coaching in the NFL. It was a great experience for me. I learned a lot. It made me better. I enjoyed the relationships that I had with the players. And I love college coaching. So the spirit of the community in a university setting is, something that's, pretty special. Well, I think that's a challenge. I think it's pretty natural to be in a situation like this, and I call them external factors, that can sort of distract you from the focus that you need to have on the task at hand. And, we talk to the players a lot about that. We try to get them to be, I call it deliberate and deep, in what they're doing every day in practice. Have a purpose in what you want to try to accomplish and what you want to try to do, understand how that's going to help you play better in the game, and, focus on those things. And, when we're not involved in football, it's okay to be involved with your family. I mean, that balance is probably good. But everybody's got to make good choices and decisions about what they do and what they don't do, so it helps them take advantage of their gifts. And we're constantly trying to get our players to understand that, and that the choices and decisions that they make can be very powerful and positive, but they also can be pretty detrimental if you don't make good choices and decisions.
Stewart said that he was 80 to 85%. How do you think his progression is health-wise leading up to the game right now?
Tua has had a good week this week. He's done things in practice that make you feel as though he doesn't have lingering issues. He's been able to move around in the pocket. He's been able to throw the ball on the run. So last week when we were practicing, back in Tuscaloosa, there were signs that maybe he wasn't 100%, but it seems like this week he's getting closer and closer to that. Well, I think the defense has sort of been a little bit of a work in progress this year. We lost a bunch of guys last year. We had a lot of new faces, a lot of inexperience, guys that were in different roles than what they've been in the past. Probably didn't have quite as much depth going into the season, so we had some younger players that needed to develop. And I think the players did a really good job of developing the confidence that they needed. I thought early in the season maybe we made a lot of mental errors. People were a little uncertain, not really secure, and they knew what to do, but they were almost a little afraid to do it. And being aggressive and assertive in communication and playing together, and that's sort of developed in a very positive way throughout the course of the year, and I think that's helped our performance quite a bit.
As a freshman, just how impressive you've been with him and how he's been able to adapt to the college football life.
Patrick has done a really, really good job for us this year. He's got a maturity about him that's beyond his years, and he's been a really, really consistent player. He's bright, he's smart, he's got very good football intuition. He understands what you're trying to get done and what you're trying to do, and goes out there and executes it, fairly well, especially for his experience and his age. But we sort of brought him along in the first couple games. We just played him about half the time, and then he became a starter, and he's just done a really good job. And he's, a phenomenal person. Really, really, he's never been in my office since he's been there for not doing what he's supposed to do. I mean, he's really conscientious, good person, cares about other people, cares about his teammates, and is very conscientious in his work. So I think all those characteristics has helped him be able to play early on and play very effectively.
Most of the time when we see you're a very serious guy, a lot of your players yesterday said you're very funny, and we don't see that side. Can you just talk about that a little bit while we always get this? We'll get you to smile now, so that's good.
I look, it's my fault, whatever it is. I get that. you know, for a long time, I thought that I was misunderstood to some degree, but I also feel like that's my fault, you know, in terms of how you present yourself. And, you know, Miss Terry talks about having a blind spot, which is how you perceive yourself and how everybody else perceives you, you know, the part in the middle. And she said mine is as big as the Grand Canyon. So I think that probably sums it up pretty well. But look, I think having good relationships with the players and not being uptight around the players is probably something that helps them. They need to know that you care about them. I don't think there's any player that really cares what you know until they know that you care. And I really do enjoy the relationships that I have with our players on our team. And I think it's a real positive that we have so many players that when they leave Alabama, whether they go to the NFL or not, they're all anxious to come back and sort of renew the acquaintances and the relationships that they developed while they were in the program, and I think that's a real positive.
Tua just told us that on that 80 to 85% comment, he said that I expect to be 100%. I'm 80, 85 now, and he expects to start. Is that your position that if he's like 80% or 85, will you not start him, or how does that work?
Look, I'm not really a medical expert. You know, the medical staff makes a decision about whether a guy's capable of playing and going out there and doing his job. And then I think the player has to sort of have input on that as well. In other words, medical staff can say he's fine, but if the player doesn't think he's fine, then he's not fine. It's, you know, Joe Namath used to always tell the old story about when he got his first knee operation when he's playing in Alabama. Coach Bryant told him it's, you know, he said, how you feel? He said, what really hurts? And Coach Bryant said, that's all in your head. And he said, it hurts just the same. So if it's in your head that you can do it or can't do it, you know, that goes a long way for me as a coach to know whether you think you can go do your job or not. So, and those decisions will be made between now and then. And he'll have input as to whether he feels like he can go out there and do his job or not. Well, we've been very fortunate, I think, to have some outstanding players, not just receivers, but the three that you mentioned certainly were really, really good players and really good people in our program. Set a good example. They were good leaders, all had great work ethic. So we've had some other really good players from around here too. I think there's great high school football here. I think there's a lot of good programs. I think football is important to, you know, a lot of the young people, you know, in this area who participate. And we're going to continue to, you know, try to get some more good players from here because we've certainly had some success in the past. So, and most of the players that we've had here have had very productive careers, and it's worked out well for them as well.
Can you talk about how important it can be to have a few guys on your team who can have that kind of hit factor in big moments in games like this, and how important that could be? And when you look at a guy like Tua, to maybe not playing the type of game last year, is that something that can carry over with the confidence into a game like this?
I think players gain confidence because of knowledge, experience, and preparation. So, you know, when players develop those things in a positive way, I think they develop a confidence and they believe that they can, you know, make the play or make the shot. But I also think that their preparation, you know, helps them do that too. You know, you don't just practice to get it right. You practice until you can't get it wrong. All right, and I think when you do that, it develops a confidence that you can go do that same thing in a game, in any situation in the game. And we don't like for our players to necessarily focus on the moment, the scoreboard, the situation, but we want them to focus on executing that particular play. And if they'll just do that, then there shouldn't be a lot of anxiety to affect, how they go about performing on that particular play. Well, these were NCAA violations. With those things carry, certain consequences. And those players knew the situation. They made poor choices and decisions. We will support the players every way that we can, but they will not be available to play for the rest of this season and maybe beyond.
Nick, did you identify Adam Gase as head coaching material early on?
I love Adam. He was with us as a graduate assistant, back at Michigan State and LSU, so that was some years ago. But I could see right away that this guy was very, very bright, had a great future, really had outstanding work ethic, was kind of a grinder, but a guy in a way that because he had a great feel for the game and a good understanding of some people have an understanding of the big picture, and people who have that seem to be able to progress nicely, in our profession. So it's no surprise to me, and I wish him continued success, and maybe Minka can help him out a little bit and having some of that success. And Kenyon Drake.
There's a lot of speculation about his status down here. You think the Dolphins would be wise to keep him?
I do. I think that's, one of the things that, it takes time to build a program. It takes time to get the kind of players that you want in an organization. There's a lot of factors in the NFL that you really can't control, whether it's salary cap. Everybody thinks that you can pick whoever you want in the draft. You can pick whoever's available when you pick. It's a little different. So sometimes things don't always work out well for you in that regard. But as long as you're making good choices and decisions and you're making progress with the people on your team in terms of developing your team and improving your team based on the players that you bring to the team, sometimes, when you make changes, you take 2 steps back, to go 1 step forward. And I think there's a lot of examples of that, in college and the NFL, actually. Well, look, I've always been opposed to expanding. I was opposed to going from 2 teams to 4 teams. And look, I think there's been a unique thing about college football that a lot of people get a lot of positive self-gratification from being able to go to a bowl game. That means you had a successful season. A lot of players get rewarded for that. And I think the playoff has become and will continue to become, as it expands, if it's expanded, to minimize the importance of those games, maybe to the point where those games won't even exist. And I'm not sure that that is the best thing overall for college football. So that's always been, when we had a 2-team playoff, I said if we go to 4 teams, it's going to minimize that. So, you're going to see more players not playing in bowl games. You're going to see less people going to bowl games. You're going to see the quality of bowl games, maybe, or the importance of them sort of disintegrate, right, which I'm not sure is good for college football. So I'm not really for going to 8 teams in the playoff. It's a hypothetical question that I have enough issues and problems to solve without thinking about how I'm going to manage something that may or may not even happen. I'm going to think about that when this game is over or when we get finished with our season. So we got a lot on our plate right now, trying to get ready for, probably the best offensive team we've seen for a long time. So we're focusing on that right now.
Hey, Coach, Oklahoma give up a lot of points and yards on defense this season. How do you make sure your guys don't look at that and look at the number of points?
Well, I think what we look at is this team has success in a little different way because they have a very, very explosive offense. They have what I would call a very opportunistic defense who seem to always be able to make plays when they needed to make them, like in the West Virginia game to score 2 times on defense with, sack fumbles that they picked up and ran for touchdowns, which basically was the difference in the game. So, and I think when you look at the big picture when you play a team like this, it's not about one side or the other. It's about how their whole team fits together. They score a lot of points, and sometimes when you score a lot of points, defensively, you're going to give up more points because of the style the other team has to play. So we look at it as if we're going to have to control the game to some degree on offense, probably being more physical, being able to execute, not giving them extra possessions, not giving them plays by misexecutions, on offense, because you're going to win or lose the game as a team, not based on some statistical information. And I think it takes a team effort, whether it's special teams, offense, defense, because they have some really, really strong characteristics as a team. And I don't think any team is strong all the way through. And you have to sort of try to make up for that by how you play in other phases. And they've been able to do that. They've been able to outscore people. And our players understand that. And what are we going to do so that we can control that to some degree is going to be a real key to the game. Well, we kind of go out and evaluate players not based on how many stars they got or anything like that, but basically what we're looking for in players, whether it's critical factors at a position or whatever. So, Josh was not a heavily recruited guy, but a guy that we looked at and we really kind of liked. And, we're saying, why is this guy being recruited? So we go see him, we watch him work out. And we just decided that, this guy has the right stuff. He's very explosive. He's quick. He's got good hands. He's got some power as a player. He can make you miss as a runner. So, you always get a little bit of question in your mind to say, this guy's from Oklahoma, and why isn't he getting recruited? But we could never find a reason, so we decided that he was the right thing for us, and he certainly has done an outstanding job for us.
Coach Loxley made reference to the fact that several coaches, including him, have kind of gone in an upswing and then a downswing, and then they come into your programs and they get kind of another boost. He said there were several coaches that it happened to. Is there something that draws you to coaches kind of looking for another act in their career?
Well, coaches are no different than players. I mean, yeah, they're at a different station, they're in a different profession, but our philosophy with players is we have players make mistakes all the time. And we try to, and I could use the word rehabilitate, help them receive the kind of help, instruction, counseling to have a better opportunity to be successful in the future. All right, so we have coaches who have a track record of being very, very good coaches, very productive, and they make some mistake or get in some circumstance or situation that maybe creates this, to use your term, downward plummet, but they still have a lot of positive values. So I look at it the same way. We can get them in our program. Maybe they learn a little better way to do things, but we also can take advantage of the good things that they know and that they've done. So it's worked out well for both. I mean, we've had very productive improvements because of some of the people that have come into our organization, and I think they have learned maybe there is a better way to manage, handle, whatever word you want to use, professionally to help them get back on track. So it's been beneficial. And I know that sometimes I'm criticized, but I've been criticized for giving players second chances. So, but I continue to do it because I think in some cases, everybody makes mistakes. And for us to judge and condemn and put punitive penalties on people that really don't help their future. It doesn't help them be successful. It condemns them in some ways to maybe having a much harsher future than they deserve. So, it's kind of a internal philosophy. Fine. They're doing fine. They're right where they're supposed to be. No.
Coach, you talk about process, and this far down the road, does the process continue, or is the process a one-year recurring thing, a four-year recurring thing, or can you explain the process, and is it forever ongoing?
It's forever ongoing. It's forever ongoing. I mean, I guess the analogy you could use is, we use it with the players all the time. Every season we're climbing a mountain. But when you reach the top, if you reach the top, we've been in circumstances where we have, and we've been in some where we haven't. The next year, you get the boulder that you pushed up the hill that year is at the bottom again. So what changes? I mean, you got to go through the same process. Process is just simply a definition of what you have to do to be successful. The road to success is always under construction. I mean, because success is not a continuum, it's momentary. And you're only as good as what happens next. So, we always say, so what? What's next? I mean, what's going to help you be successful the next time? So it's ongoing.
Kind of continuing year by year, it starts over.
Yeah, you're building. Yeah, you're constantly building. And you're constantly defining. Here's the goal. Here's what we have to do to accomplish the goal. And here's the discipline that we have to be able to do it. So that's basically, in summary, what needs to be done.
Is it strange, what does it feel like to see some of your contemporaries like Mark Rickson and the longer you're in this business, to see those guys go away, what is it like for you having sort of come up with them?
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for all those guys. They're outstanding coaches. They're good people. They've been great for our profession. They made tremendous contributions, I think, on and off the field in terms of the example that they set, the leadership that they have. And that never goes away from me. Just because they're not coaching the team right now, I still have that same respect and admiration for who they are and what they've done and how they've helped people. And I'm sure a lot of the players that they coached through the years probably feel the same way.
Is it a motivation when you see young guys like Lincoln or even Kirby, who were part of building up as a coach? Is it a motivation to see those younger guys come up and think, I got to stay on my game, whatever it might be?
Well, a lot of these young coaches are very, very talented, dynamic. They doing a lot of creative things that are very challenging to whoever is coaching against them, whether they're young or old, it doesn't matter. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for, these guys who have, been dedicated to their profession and done a great job in whatever they've been asked to do, and that's why they have the opportunities that they have now. And for those that you mentioned, they've done a really, really good job. Well, I think it's one of the, systematically, it's one of the as well-conceived offenses that we've had to play against for a long time. And he is a very good play caller, and he is very good at utilizing the personnel that he has and putting them in positions to make plays. And they always seem to have a complementary play that goes with the last play. So when you figure out how to stop that play, then they got another play that comes off of that same kind of action that makes it even more difficult. So it's very well conceived, and the players, it still comes down to players' execution. And obviously they do a great job of teaching their players because their players do a great job of executing.
Then when you face an offense like an incredible offense, sometimes you think, hey, we need to be a little bit more aggressive. We may have to steal a possession here somewhere along the way. Are those kind of conversations happen before the game, or does it depend on how the game unfolds?
Well, I think the conversations occur before the game in terms of, all right, this is what we have to do to win the game. And I already mentioned earlier that, giving them extra possessions, whether it's turning the ball over, whether it's not controlling the line of scrimmage and being physical, whether it's dropping balls, whether it's third down that now you don't extend the drive and you give the ball back to them. All those things become critical factors in playing against a team like this. So that's all discussed beforehand. But when the game starts, that may change. I mean, the circumstances in a game may make you sort of adjust what you're doing so you can adapt to what's happening in the game. Whether you get ahead, behind, a lot of things could happen.
I look back at the onside kick against Clemson. That was a play that at that point in the game, you felt like you needed a possession.
Yeah, I've said this many times before, but I just felt like in that game we were having a tough time stopping them. We played a lot of plays on defense, almost 100 plays in that game, 80 before the fourth quarter. And I just felt like if we didn't steal a possession some kind of way, we might not stop them. So it was kind of like basketball. So, by trying the onside kick, we got an extra possession and we scored, so we got ahead by 2 scores. So even though we didn't stop them, we still were able to come out and be successful.
Is that something that's instant at that point, or do you have certain situations in mind before the game that if this happens, we might do this?
Well, I think it's all calculated a little bit. So, you look at things that you might be able to take advantage of, in preparation, and you say, if this circumstance comes up, we think the risk reward here may be worthwhile. So if it gets to that point, maybe you try something like that. So
You had a chance to get a look at the stadium?
just driving in,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little different.
It's a lot different, yeah.
And
You interested
looks-
to see what they've done with it?
Yeah, I would, and it looks great.
Nick, as someone that you talked about back a little bit, as someone that's seen both sides, college and NFL, any advice to give Lincoln as a campaign candidate who is looking for a bunch of NFL coaches? What advice would you give?
I don't. I mean, he's a very bright guy, and I don't really have any advice. I think everybody learns from their experiences. I learned from my experience in coming here. When I left LSU to come here, I learned something about myself. And at the time, it was a tough consequence, to have to deal with. So I don't think anybody can really give anybody advice based on their, professional path, because everybody's got different goals and aspirations and things that they like and dislike about what they do. And so I really couldn't offer any advice. But I think sometimes as coaches, we always think, like my dad used to say, the grass is always greener on top of the septic tank. That's what he used to say. All right, so doesn't mean that the next opportunity is better than the one you have, I guess is what I would say.
About yourself here, Nick?
I think that my goal as a coach was always in the back of my mind after being in the NFL for 6 years, 2 in Houston as a secondary coach, 4 in Cleveland as a coordinator with Bill Belichick, that I would eventually, when I had success in college, that I would eventually want to go back and be an NFL head coach. Just because it just seemed like the logical thing to do. And I couldn't have been in a better situation here in Miami with better people. But yet I kind of found out that maybe I was just a little more suited to be a college coach. And that was a tough realization because of the situation that I put myself in and the obligation I had to the people that I work for and the players. So, but I kind of learned that. So I decided that maybe that's the best thing for me to do is go back and be a college coach and see if I could have a better chance of being successful in that regard.
Coach, speaking of coaches in general, I'm just curious what you think about Lincoln Riley. The guy's been on the job 2 years, been to the playoffs 2 times. What exactly makes him special?
Well, I've been talking about that quite a bit. I just think the guy's really, really bright. He's got great concepts of what he does on offense. He must be a great teacher because the players really do a great job of executing, what they're supposed to do. And it's very unique in terms of style. And I think he's an innovative type coach in terms of some of the concepts and ideas that they've been able to implement successfully, in their program. So I just think he's done an outstanding, job.
How have you seen your offensive guys really lean on each other this year? Both quarterbacks seem to have a great mentality about it, and wide receivers and talented running backs. How have you seen those guys really feed off each other and get better day to day?
Well, I think that our guys have confidence in each other. I think they play together well. I think probably the part of that gets overlooked a little bit is the O-line has, done a good enough job to allow all those skill guys that you mentioned to be able to execute and have the opportunity to make a lot of plays. It starts with the quarterbacks, obviously, and I do think our coaching staff has done a really good job of, getting those players to play together, to put the team first, and I think they have, really good chemistry about the belief they have in what we're doing, as well as each other.
Anybody who says anything about his future is just making assumptions. You think that's fair?
Well, we haven't had that conversation, and Jalen and I, talk about a lot of things, but I don't think the timing's right. He doesn't think the timing's right. So whenever he thinks the time is right, we'll have that conversation. And as I've said many times in the past, I really want what's best for Jalen. So we're going to be supportive of helping him be successful in the future. We're proud of the fact that he's graduated, and he's made a great contribution to the program in more ways than how many games he's won. He's been very inspirational to his teammates, especially this past year, which is indicated by them voting him the most inspirational player. So just a lot of positive things that we're really proud of him for, but also it's not the right time to be talking about his future.
Asking people in different levels of sports, different sports, what they've sacrificed to reach where they are. When you think about to get here in your life, what do you sacrifice?
Well, I enjoy what I do, and what I've done with players through the years, whether it's as an assistant or a head coach or whatever, has given me a lot of positive self-gratification. So I don't want you to think that I'm like disappointed, but I think that our profession in general is not very family friendly because of the time commitments that you have during the season. And if I have one sacrifice that I made, I would have liked to have been a better father to my children, a better husband to my wife, because I'd have had more time to maybe do things that they enjoy doing. And that's not to say that they haven't gotten some positive self-gratification from things that have been done, but still, you sacrifice a lot, especially when your kids are small. Like I was in Cleveland at the Browns, when Nicholas and Kristen were, I don't know, they were probably 2 and 6 to 6 to 10, in that area for the 4 years. And if we played on the West Coast, I'd live in the same house with them and not see them for 11 days. I mean, I don't. That bothers me, So, but anyway, that I would say the personal aspects. But then on the other side of that, you have so many great relationships because of the profession that you're in. But when it comes to your own family, sometimes you feel like I have a granddaughter now, it's 5 years old. There's times when I'm saying, I haven't seen her for 2 weeks. I don't like that. That bothers me. Well, I didn't want to be a coach, so I kind of knew what I wanted to be, and it wasn't a coach. So, you've heard this story before, but I worked in my dad's service station, worked on cars and all that stuff from the time I was 11 years old until I think I got married. So I just assumed that when I graduated from college, I would get, I thought about going to General Motors, had a school where you could go learn how to be a general manager of a car dealership. I thought it would be something like that that I would do. And Coach James called me in after I got finished playing my senior year. And, and when I got called in the coach's office, I thought it was like going to the principal's office. It was like, what did I do wrong here? And he said, I want you to come back and be a graduate assistant. And I said, Coach, I don't want to go to graduate school, and I don't want to be a coach. So why would I ever do that? But he talked me into it. So, and I enjoyed it. And it wasn't like going to work every day. And so one thing led to another. And so I guess to answer your question, I guess I'd have been in some kind of business endeavor. That's probably something to do with cars, only because that's what I grew up
You
with.
would have had a bunch of car dealerships.
I don't know about
You're already
that.
on your way to that. Thanks.
Thanks, Coach.
Is
We're
that
done.
it? All right, thank you all. Appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
My niece is a freshman at Kent State.
Oh, is
I
that
got
right?
a Golden Flashes T-shirt for Christmas.
Great.
Nice to see you.